There's a name in the film world that serves as a kind of benchmark for everything else. When someone wants to say that a performance was extraordinary, the comparison inevitably leads to her. Meryl Streep is not just an actress. She's a standard, a reference point, a phenomenon that Hollywood has tried to label countless times and has never managed to fit into any box small enough. Meryl Streep is the kind of name that stops any conversation. With over 21 Oscar nominations and 9 Golden Globe nominations, she occupies a place that no other actor or actress in the world has managed to reach, and that alone should make us ask, what is it about this woman that makes her different? The answer lies not only in talent, although that is undeniable. It lies in the ability to completely transform oneself with each role, to the point where you forget you are watching a performance and begin to believe that this person truly exists, whether it's a Polish Holocaust survivor, a ruthless fashion editor, or an exuberant French cook. But before all this acclaim, before the awards and the red carpets, there was an ordinary girl growing up in rural America, with no guarantee that her name would one day mean anything to the world. And it is precisely this part of the story that few truly know. Mary Louise Streep, that's the real name behind one of the greatest icons of world cinema. She was born on June 22, 1949, in the city of Summit, in the state of New Jersey, into a family that, at first glance, seemed quite ordinary by American standards of the time. Her father, Harry Streep Jr., was a pharmaceutical executive, and her mother, Mary Wolfe, was an artist and amateur singer, and it was precisely from this combination of the practical and the sensitive worlds that Meryl drew her first dose of inspiration. Her mother, in particular, instilled in her from an early age a keen perception of beauty, emotion, and artistic expression that no amount of money can buy. Little-known fact, the surname Streep has Ashkenazi Jewish origins, and the family had a history of adaptation and reinvention that, unintentionally, ended up becoming a kind of trademark for Meryl herself throughout her career. At just 6 years old, Meryl Streep stepped onto the stage for the first time in a school play, portraying the Virgin Mary, and something happened there that she never forgot. It wasn't a grand moment in the eyes of the audience, but something ignited within that child, a sense of presence, of being able to capture people's attention with just her body and voice. It was in that simple moment, in a school auditorium, that she discovered the impact acting can have on the audience. Unlike other art forms, theater has this unique characteristic of creating a live, almost visceral connection between the performer and the viewer, and Meryl felt this firsthand even before understanding what it meant. At that time, she already admired the great classic actresses she saw on television and in movies, women who dominated the scene with impressive naturalness, and those images became fixed in her memory as a silent model of what she, perhaps one day, could become. Before conquering Hollywood, Meryl Streep almost followed a completely different path, that of music. In her teens, she developed a genuine interest in opera singing and even studied opera with a renowned teacher, training her voice with a discipline that few young people her age would have the patience to maintain. During that period, Barbra Streisand was one of her great influences, a woman who used her voice as an instrument of emotional transformation, capable of making the audience cry and laugh almost simultaneously. Meryl absorbed all of this like a sponge, and this musical training ended up developing in her a sensitivity to the rhythm of speech and the musicality of words that would later become one of the hallmarks of her acting. But, over time, her fascination with music cooled, not for lack of talent, but for lack of that inner fire that only appears when you find what you truly came to do in the world. And that fire, as she would soon discover, was hidden elsewhere. Meryl Streep's adolescence holds a twist that surprises many people when they discover it. The studious and artistic girl suddenly decided to completely change her look, adopt a more extroverted behavior, and, amazingly, joined the school's cheerleading squad, the famous American cheerleaders, a world seemingly far removed from the stage and opera. What few realize is that this change wasn't a betrayal of her essence. It was actually a laboratory. It was during this phase that she began to develop, almost intuitively, a skill that would define her entire career: the ability to imitate people, to observe gestures, mannerisms, intonations, and reproduce them with disconcerting precision. She was, without knowing it, doing what every great actor does before stepping onto a real stage: studying human beings in their natural habitat. And this silent observation of others' behavior, which began in the school hallways, would be the foundation of one of the most impressive careers that theater and film have ever seen. When Meryl Streep entered Vassar College in New York, she wasn't entirely sure what path she wanted to follow. But it was there that one of those life-changing moments occurred. Her performance in the play A Streetcar Named Desire had such a profound impact on the audience and the professors that it became impossible to ignore what was happening before everyone's eyes. From there, the invitation to join the Yale School of Drama, one of the most respected theater schools in the world, came as a confirmation of what she already felt inside. Yale was not just a technical training. It was the place where she learned to inhabit characters in a complete way, immersing herself in the psychology, history, and emotions of each role with a depth that few managed to achieve. It's worth remembering that before dedicating herself completely to art, Meryl considered pursuing a career in law, which speaks volumes about her analytical skills and extraordinary intelligence. But her talent prevailed, and she made the decision that the world thanks her for to this day: to put all that intelligence at the service of acting. In 1975, Meryl Streep packed her bags and moved to New York with a determination that few recent graduates can maintain in the face of the city's harshness. The New York theater scene is unforgiving, full of talent vying for every opportunity. But she entered this environment as if she had been born to be there, participating in classic plays and showing a versatility that quickly caught attention. In a short time, her name began circulating in the most respected circles of American theater, and nominations for important awards such as the Tony, the Drama Desk, and the Obie came as a natural recognition of someone who was already delivering far more than expected in each performance. These awards were not just trophies. They were clear signs that the market was watching her. The theater was Meryl's ultimate school, the place where she learned that acting has no safety net, that each night is unique, and that mistakes can't be cut out in editing like in film. This pressure, instead of intimidating her, seemed to fuel her, and it was precisely this grit, built on the New York stages, that she would take with her when the doors of Hollywood began to open. Before becoming the most respected name in Hollywood, Meryl Streep had to swallow a rejection that would have made anyone less determined give up everything and go home. During a screen test for the film King Kong in 1976, producer Dino De Laurentiis looked at her and, in front of everyone, made an offensive comment about her appearance, openly questioning whether she was pretty enough for the movies. What this producer didn't know was that he was facing a woman who had spent years in one of the most demanding theater programs in the world, who had been nominated for important awards, and who possessed a transformative capacity that went far beyond any aesthetic standard. The rejection hurt, of course, but it didn't paralyze her. On the contrary, that episode ended up profoundly influencing the way Meryl would choose her roles from then on, always prioritizing the complexity of the character over the superficiality of the image. It was as if Hollywood had tried to diminish her and she had responded, with frightening calm, deciding that she would prove her worth in a way that no one could ignore. Meryl Streep's film debut was in 1977, in the movie Julia, alongside Jane Fonda and Vanessa Redgrave, two huge names that could easily overshadow any aspiring actress. But even in a small role, she left her mark, that feeling that every word spoken on screen had weight, intention, and truth. Alongside her film career, she also built her presence on television, participating in smaller productions that served as a warm-up for what was to come. But it was in the miniseries Holocaust, in 1978, that the American public finally recognized a face associated with Meryl Streep, a production that addressed the Jewish extermination in World War II with a seriousness and courage rare for television at the time. Her performance in Holocaust earned her immediate recognition, including an Emmy Award, and was the first concrete sign that this actress wasn't just starting a career, she was building something much bigger. The talent she had honed on the New York stage was finding a new and powerful territory to expand into on screen. Behind all the professional success, there was an intense and devastating love story unfolding in Meryl Streep's personal life. She fell in love with John Cazale, a highly talented actor known for his roles in films like The Godfather and The Deer Hunter, a man with a magnetic presence and artistic sensibility that resonated with hers in a rare way. The problem was that when the two met, John already carried a cruel diagnosis: advanced stage lung cancer. Meryl knew about the illness and chose to stay, a decision that says everything about the kind of person she is. She even worked on productions alongside him precisely so they could spend more time together during the little time they had left. John Cazale died in March 1979, and the loss left a deep mark on Meryl that has never been completely erased. Those who know her acting closely say that there is a layer of real pain in her performances that doesn't come from any method taught in drama school, and perhaps this personal tragedy explains, at least in part, where so much truth comes from in each character she inhabits. It was also in 1978, still grieving the loss of John Cazale, that Meryl Streep delivered one of the most remarkable performances of her early career in the film The Deer Hunter, the same project she had worked on alongside her partner. The role was relatively small, but the way she handled it caught the attention of all of Hollywood at once. Recognition came quickly and in double measure. An Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress confirmed what the artistic community had already been whispering behind the scenes: that this woman had something different, something that cannot be taught or imitated. It was clear that Meryl Streep was no longer just a promising talent. She was establishing herself as a real force within the American film industry. And what's most impressive is that all of this was happening during one of the most difficult periods of her personal life, which reveals an extraordinary determination. Many people would have withdrawn, taken time off, asked for a break. She went ahead, transforming pain into fuel and grief into art, in a dedication that Hollywood had rarely seen until then. In 1979, Meryl Streep stepped onto the set of Kramer vs. Kramer and found herself facing one of Hollywood's most respected and feared actors, Dustin Hoffman. The film was about a devastating divorce, and the behind-the-scenes atmosphere reflected some of that tension, with Hoffman employing extreme provocative methods to elicit genuine reactions from Meryl on screen, an approach she later described as disrespectful and unnecessary. But the result on screen was undeniable. Meryl's performance in Kramer vs. Kramer is one of those cases where the chemistry of the real conflict seeped into the character in a way that no script could fabricate. The Best Supporting Actress Oscar she received in 1980 was the official consecration of a career that had begun on the New York stages just a few years earlier. What made this moment even more significant was the debate it sparked about the place of women in Hollywood and the types of roles offered to them. Meryl began to publicly question the limitations imposed on actresses, defending female characters with depth, contradictions, and dignity, in a stance that was both courageous and necessary for the time. If the 70s were a period of construction, the 80s were the moment when Meryl Streep simply dominated Hollywood in a way that left no room for doubt. She began to choose dramatic roles with female characters of impressive complexity, women who carried moral dilemmas, contradictory emotions, and stories that cinema had rarely told with such honesty. In 1982, Sophie's Choice arrived, and with it came her second Oscar, this time for Best Actress. Playing Sophie, a Polish Holocaust survivor carrying a devastating secret, demanded such a deep dive from Meryl that she learned Polish and German to bring authenticity to the character. This level of dedication to the craft of acting was simply unprecedented in Hollywood. Following that came Silkwood in 1983, where she played a union activist poisoned under mysterious circumstances, and Out of Africa in 1985, which earned her another Oscar nomination. Each of these films reinforced the same message. Meryl Streep didn't choose roles to shine. She chose stories to tell, and this difference in intention is precisely what separates a good actress from a genuine phenomenon. Anyone who thinks Meryl Streep's success came from easy and uncomplicated talent has never heard what went on behind the scenes of her productions. She was known for extreme preparation methods, immersing herself in the psychology of her characters long before the cameras started rolling, studying accents, life stories, traumas, and habits with a meticulousness that impressed even experienced directors. In Sophie's Choice, for example, the emotional weight she carried during filming was so intense that her own colleagues on set reported an atmosphere of constant tension, as if the character's pain was real and present at all times. This kind of total commitment comes at a high price, and Meryl never pretended otherwise, admitting in numerous interviews the psychological pressures that accompanied each major role. But it is precisely this absolute dedication that explains why her performance transcends the screen and strikes the viewer directly in the heart. There are no tricks, no shortcuts. There is a woman willing to delve deep into uncomfortable places to bring back something true. And this truth, however painful it may be to achieve, is what transforms an ordinary performance into an unforgettable experience. Amidst all this professional intensity, Meryl Streep found in a sculptor named Don Gummer a safe haven that few expected she would need. The two married in September 1978, a few months after the death of John Cazale, in a union that many viewed with skepticism at first, but which proved to be one of the most solid and enduring love stories in Hollywood. Together, Meryl and Don built a family with 4 children: Henry, Mamie, Grace, and Louisa, and this choice to invest in her personal life with the same seriousness with which she invested in her career says a lot about who she is off-camera. While Hollywood celebrated her fictional characters, she was at home being a real mother, present and committed to a routine that few would associate with one of the world's biggest stars. This family stability wasn't a secondary detail in Meryl's career, it was a cornerstone. Many highly talented actors lose their way precisely because they have nothing solid to hold on to when the spotlight becomes too heavy. She did, and this largely explains how she managed to navigate decades of pressure, rejection, and overcoming adversity without losing either her sanity or the essence of who she is. Anyone who observes Meryl Streep's career closely notices that behind the variety of characters, there is a clear and consistent thread. She has always been drawn to stories that place women in situations of impossible choice. Characters who must decide between what society expects of them and what they themselves desire, and this tension between female independence and external pressure appears in almost all of her major roles. Human dignity is another theme that runs through her work like an undercurrent. Even when playing villains or morally questionable characters, Meryl finds a way to show the humanity behind their actions, that layer of fragility and contradiction that makes anyone, no matter how distant they may seem, recognize themselves in some way on screen. This is a conscious artistic choice, not a coincidence. And then there are the complex emotional conflicts, which she handles with surgical precision that would make any screenwriter envious. Meryl never simplifies what is complicated, never delivers a pure emotion when real life teaches us that true feelings always come mixed, confused, and sometimes contradictory. It is this refusal to simplify that makes her performance such an accurate mirror of the human experience. In the late 1980s, Meryl Streep did something that surprised many people. She allowed herself to laugh. After a series of heavy dramatic roles that had defined her reputation in Hollywood, she immersed herself in comedy with a naturalness that made it clear that her talent knew no genre boundaries. Films like Heartburn and She-Devil showed a side of her that audiences barely suspected existed. However, not everything was a box office triumph during this period. Some projects didn't perform as expected in theaters, and for the first time, voices emerged in Hollywood questioning whether Meryl Streep's name still had the same commercial appeal as before. It was the kind of noise the industry loves to create when an artist refuses to fit into a comfortable and predictable box. But the award nominations continued to arrive with a regularity that defied any narrative of decline, proving that critics and academia never lost faith in her work. This contrast between market judgment and artistic recognition created an interesting tension in her career, a tension that would become even more evident in the following decade, and that held some surprising chapters for those who were following closely. The 90s arrived, bringing with them a curious and somewhat unfair phenomenon for Meryl Streep. For the first time in her career, the pace of major opportunities noticeably slowed down. Hollywood, always obsessed with novelty and youth, began to direct its spotlight towards a new generation of actresses, and the name that had dominated the previous decade began to appear less frequently on lists of the most anticipated projects. It wasn't a sudden drop, it was more like a tide slowly receding, almost imperceptible to those who weren't paying close attention. She continued working, continued delivering high-level performances, but the feeling that the spotlight had shifted was real and was felt both by the industry and by Meryl herself, who needed to find within herself a new layer of determination to move forward without the fuel of immediate recognition. What Hollywood didn't know, and perhaps even she didn't know at the time, is that this apparent pause was actually the intermission before a second act even more impressive than the first. Meryl Streep's story is far from over, and what comes next will show that true talent doesn't age, it matures. We've reached the end of this first part of Meryl Streep's journey, and if there's one thing this story makes clear, it's that greatness isn't born ready-made. It's built brick by brick, with rejection, with loss, with overcoming adversity, with courageous choices made even when the circumstances offered no guarantee of success. Her story doesn't end here, and neither does yours. Meryl's second act was even more powerful than the first, and in the next installment we'll delve deep into this phase of reinvention and ultimate consecration that transformed a respected actress into an absolute legend. If you don't want to miss any detail of this incredible journey, subscribe to the channel now and activate the notification bell, because this is a story worth every minute of your attention.